Hello, and welcome to Activate Presents Grow Your Mind chat sessions in collaboration with Collabs. I am your host, Anam Sethi. Welcome to the show. Today, I have a very special guest with me. But before we get to that, I want to tell you a little story. Our guest today has played a very monumental role in my professional life. In fact, the incident I'm about to tell you is the reason why I am actually here in front of you representing Activate today. Long time ago, I was working at the Lahore University of Management Sciences, LUMS, and I loved my job. I loved what I was doing. I was researching and writing and publishing case studies for MBA classes and executive education programs. And that's actually how I became aware of executive education in the first place. Nonetheless, I had no clue what experiential learning was. One day on my day off, I remember waking up and I had this itch, this desire to go out and perhaps seek something more. A lot of you may not know this, but I have a background in theater arts. So I really love connecting with people on a one-to-one level. I love being in an environment where I can interact and where I can learn and grow. And even though the research and the learning at the business school at LUMS was great for me and I loved it, there was that element of human connect that was really missing for me. So I woke up one morning and I messaged our mentor who will be joining us shortly. And I remember saying, I need to come see you. There's something that's bothering me and I want to talk to you about it. And she texted me back. She said, okay, come over. I'm in office. And I visited her at the office and I started talking to her. And at that moment, I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I had this feeling, this emotion, and I let it all out. And from that one half-baked conversation, our mentor was able to connect me to somebody very pertinent to Activate. That is Mashal Pirzada, who's the Director of Strategy and Programs here. And I remember I reached out to Mashal and I found out at that very moment that there was a job opening at Activate. And I applied and I got there, I got to meet Umar Khan. And from there, my journey really began. And so I always look back, and for a very long time, I thought, it's destiny, it's fate. I wake up one day, I message a mentor, I meet her, I get connected to somebody, there's a job opening. It just seemed like the stars were aligned. But as I grew more and more aware about destiny, fate, things like managing your luck, I began to realize that, in fact, had I decided to just relax on that day, which was something I was considering, I wanted to sit back and watch TV. Had I not taken those actions, perhaps, had I not reached out, had I not said, I need help, I need support, guide me, would I be where I am today? A little food for thought for you as I present our next guest. Like I've said, she is somebody who is extremely relevant to my career, but to the career of many people. She is a renowned entrepreneur, the CEO and founder of Luscious Cosmetics. Please welcome Mehrbano Sethi. Mehrbano, it's so lovely to have you on the show. Mehrbano, I believe you might be on mute. A little something that happens in the digital world.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Anam. I'm so glad I was able to make a difference.
No, thank you so much, Mehrbano. And I'm going to kick off this conversation right away. I know our viewers are dying to hear from you. So, Mehrbano, I always ask this question to all of our mentors on the show. What does growth mindset mean to you?
A growth mindset, a real growth mindset means being relentless, focused, persistent, and most important, patient. I started my company 15 years ago in my early 20s, and I thought, when one is starting their own business, there's a lot of ambition, which is great, but you have to understand the role of time and the role of focus. You keep reaching for that growth, but it has to be in a sustained, well thought out manner. And it sounds boring, but that's really what it is.
That's fantastic that we get a little bit of a reality check every time we have a mentor on board. You're right, that ambition can really, sort of kickstart us in the beginning and have us taking a lot of actions. But over time, when it becomes routine, when it becomes struggle, we often find ourselves saying, this is perhaps too much for me. And for that, I really would like to know a lot more about your story. So where did the inspiration for Luscious Cosmetics come from?
So, it's how they say in the tech world, you find a problem that you solve. I got back from college at the age of 21, and I've just loved makeup my whole life. I come from a long line of women who collect and love makeup. My late mother was a big influence. My grandmother is a huge influence in just loving makeup products and collecting them. And I came back here, and at the time, there were none of the multinationals that you see that suddenly came in when Pakistan actually came on their radar as an emerging market. We just used to have these very small, hole in the wall cosmetic stores where, you could just go and get a mixed bag of whatever they had managed to bring into the country. And so that was my problem. I couldn't buy makeup. And, buying beauty products for me has always represented not just looking good, but it's kind of like a therapy. It's the way I express myself. So that's the problem I set out to solve. And it led me to do a lot of research. I had already been exposed to e-commerce because the year I graduated, Sephora had just launched in the US, and I placed my first makeup order, received it in my apartment. It was a transformational experience for me at the time. And, we have been doing e commerce since the first year in business, which was 2008. I used to mail stuff out via the Pakistan post office. And some stuff used to reach people, some stuff didn't reach people. But, that was my goal, to just have products that everyone could love at an affordable price point.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I think the thing that you said in the very beginning, where you find a problem that you really relate to, and then you find a solution. Now, a lot of times what happens is that we identify a problem and we really itch to create a solution. And perhaps we come up with the best idea. How do we translate a concept, a thought, an idea into an actual, real, on the ground business?
Lots and lots of research, and also lots and lots of, I mean, you have to educate yourself. Lots of times people come up with great ideas that, have either already been done or have, you have to look at market size. So if you have a revolutionary idea that's going to help 100,000 people, you really have to calculate these things. If you have a great idea that's going to help 100,000 people as opposed to a great idea that's going to help 10 million or 100 million people, you need to assess that. You need to assess what it would take, how much money it would take to actually execute it in a way that would give you a fighting chance. And also just really learn whatever you can about the industry that idea lies in.
Right. So it's a lot of legwork and a lot of hard research, going out there and really understanding the beast you're about to tackle, really, and having a
Ab-
very realistic view of the situation.
I'd
So
like to,
Mehrbano,
sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just relating to your question, I'd like to tell you a very interesting concept that's just come up recently in consumer goods
Mm-hmm.
in the US. So, suppose you've decided that you want to sell a better mattress. Your big idea is that you want a mattress. I'm just giving you a hypothetical example, but your big idea is that you're going to disrupt the mattress industry, and you've got this mattress which has got cooling gel in it that balances your sleep. What they do is you create a Facebook page and you create a landing page and you advertise it for $100 and you see if people are actually going to buy it. So the product doesn't exist; it's just a concept, and they're testing it by actually putting it out in the real world before they buy the inventory, before they do the R&D. Idea testing is the new thing, and I think with social media, it gives us so much more information. When I began, social media was just starting. I had no connection or ways to get feedback from my customers. It was always a gut feeling.
Absolutely. I think in this day and age, there's a lot more that we can do. I think that also puts a lot of pressure because then that means that social media, the accessibility that you have, then there would be a lot more people who would be able to, so to speak, cross those barriers and perhaps come out in competition with you and your idea. And I believe that there's a lot of fear of this idea stealing, or I wanted to be the first one to do this. This was my idea, and now I see somebody else coming up with it. But I think with entrepreneurship, there's a lot more fear and a lot more emotions that are involved. So when you were really coming out and you were testing out Luscious was just emerging into the market. You were in your early 20s. What are some of the fears that you had?
I was petrified. It had never been done in Pakistan.
Right.
Uh, when you went to, I mean, the first person I pitched to was my father. He's a man, he's not a makeup wearer. And, the first thing was when you say the word cosmetics and, launching a brand in Pakistan, it was all about, okay, are you going to start a whitening cream factory? Or, it just couldn't really convey it. And, at the time, what we call indie brands or startups were not as wildly trendy or sought after. It was the big brands. So you were either a MAC Cosmetics or you were a no one. And, so I had a lot of fears. The fears were that I'm going to buy all this inventory, import all these products that we've created from designed from scratch, and I'm going to be sitting on this inventory. How am I going to sell it? I did not have the backup of e-commerce. It was going to be 100% brick and mortar retail, and it depended on whether the retailers were going to onboard us or not. Also, a couple of brands had previously tried. I'm not by any means the pioneer. A couple of brands had tried, not been able to provide customer service or consistency in quality, been thrown out of retailers, and then retailers were like, no, we're not going to have another Pakistani socialite um, sell us consumer goods which she can't back up.
Right. Right. And so, Mehrbano, digging a little deeper with that, how did that impact you personally, though? Did it take a stressful toll on you?
Incredibly, incredibly. But when I look back now, I can't really believe, I just had this real conviction. I had this real sense of purpose, sense of conviction. I think a slightly insane amount of optimism as well. Which, if I did it now, I don't know if my nerves can handle it. But it was, the day my shipment landed, it was 52,000 units of products. I mean, I couldn't sleep for a week.
And so, how do you manage that stress then? When you don't sleep for a week, how do you get up in the morning and commit every day? Is it the optimism that drives you, or is there something else you need to do?
Well, I'm really glad. That's an excellent question. I'm so glad that self care and, as you said, managing your luck, I love that phrase. And also, just, there's so much support among founders these days. At the time, I'll tell you, I was just running on coffee and adrenaline. There was no there was no coherent thought where I felt that I needed to manage it. Yes, one of the things that I did do was I took up writing. So, I'd just sit there and write in a journal because there was very few people I could turn to explain. I didn't want to really say, I'm nervous, I can't sleep, because then I didn't want people to lose confidence in me. And I realize now that I should have done it. I mean, I was really afraid of being judged.
Right. And I think it's that kind of fear that can really manifest us. I've spoken to quite a few people on the show and outside of the show. And one thing that we all tend to do, especially when we are focusing on something and really going after is that we tend to absorb a lot of stress and keep it within us. And exactly what you're saying, that writing, taking care of yourself, seeking support, these are perhaps all the ways that we can let some of that stress evaporate. Because I do know, and this is something that has been written across business journals and magazines, from Forbes to anything else, that the emotional burden of entrepreneurship is perhaps the most intense. And we see people crumbling under the pressure and really succumbing to the stress. And that kind of progression, that kind of training, and that kind of patience you need to tell yourself that, okay, perhaps I need to relax a lot more and be positive and optimistic. But again, do the actions that are going to help me get through this. Now, with connection to that, Mehrbano, I really wanted to ask you this question. Did you at any point in your career lose faith in your product?
I never lost faith in my product. I am a product first, customer first kind of mindset um, in my approach to entrepreneurship. But yes, I did kind of lose confidence in the market a couple of times. I thought that have I underestimated the size of this market? Have I, there were times where revenue growth was not meeting projections. And then suddenly e-commerce came in, and word of mouth, and just really connecting with our customers, and then I didn't lose confidence. But one does lose confidence in a lot of aspects. One just has to realize that you have to balance perception and reality within yourself.
Interesting. And then where does that balance of perception and reality really come from?
It comes from, you have to train yourself to think a certain way.
Right.
Feeling that something is not working. Okay, fine, you're feeling it. Where's the data?
Hmm. Right.
So, okay, so you have to kind of really train yourself to everything that you're feeling, like feeling
Hmm.
in relation to your business. It has to be backed up with some kind of data or some reality.
Right. And Mehrbano, I'm going to just quickly ask this question here because I think it's very pertinent to our conversation. Rafia Mohsen is asking, is passion something essential to drive success? And I know for a fact that there are many entrepreneurs out there who perhaps want to start a business for the sake of starting a business and not so much for the product itself or the solution that's presented. Is that an okay strategy to take?
No. Well, yes and no. Rafa, excellent question. Yes, passion is something, it's not solely enough by any means, but it will definitely give you at least a 25% edge on your competitors. So that's a pretty large number that kind of passion brings to to business. I mean, currently with lots of startups, there's people looking to solve a problem, and lots of entrepreneurs have, they went to Harvard, they had a class, and they had an idea in class, and that they've brought into the real world, which is fine because they want to build a profitable business, but it's not necessarily that they've been passionate about it or that they live or breathe it since they began. um, I think both systems work, but passion will definitely give you an edge.
And that's a pretty great edge, to be honest. Marshall is asking a question here, and I think we've discussed a little bit about the doubts and fears we had starting off. But with relation to this question, there's something else that I really wanted to dig deeper in. Was there ever a moment in your entrepreneurial journey where you really broke down or felt that this was perhaps too much for me to take? And how did you recover from that?
Several times. I mean, more times than I can count on my fingers. It's happened. It's happened. I've seen a lot of venture capital. So we're a 100% self-funded private company. We have no debt. We've had the sustained growth model. And I've seen so many new brands come out in competition with Luscious with lots and lots of money to burn, from investors. And, they've tried to come in, really give us a run for our money. There's times, I mean, it's when a new competitor enters the market or the market is slow. Times like now, where we're in the third month with zero brick and mortar retail revenue because stores have been closed. So yes, there's lots of times. Again, Anam, as you said, it's about you have to learn to manage it.
Really, and with that, now that we're really talking about these unprecedented times we're facing, I'm really glad you brought that up because the way business was done perhaps 3 months ago is nowhere close to the way business has to be done now. And Mehrbano, as somebody who is managing, like you said, an entirely self-funded business here in Pakistan during COVID times when everything is now going online and digital and that person-to-person connect has been entirely removed, what advice can you offer a young entrepreneur who has a concept and wants to roll out that concept and create that reality, but are now confined to a digital space?
There are equal pros and cons to that. The opportunity here is that retail has seen a 14% increase globally during COVID, where it was actually going at about a 1% increase annually. So, what it did in the past 14 years, it did in 3 months. So that is your opportunity. But it depends on the industry, really, Anam. I mean, if you're planning on going into something that's consumer facing, like consumer goods, or, it depends on what it is and how relevant it is to the world today. I would say that if it's something that depends on consumers being in a good mood and in a mood to spend, it would be something that I would say hold on to just until we see what the new normal is. But that doesn't mean you give up. It means you look at your competition, see what they're suffering, and figure out what what your moat is going to be, what your defense is going to be with the new normal. But then, if you have services, for example, anywhere in the healthcare sector, or
Right.
any where you're software as a service, I think, I mean, businesses are still launching. It also depends on what your financial model is. Are you seeking funding? Because this is not really the time to seek funding, I feel. The size
Absolutely.
the size of checks, the valuations are at an all-time low. So, I mean, I would say this is a wait, watch, and learn scenario.
Mehrbano, I think that really links back to what we were talking about in the very beginning when you said time and patience. And that is a lesson that I think we can really take away. And it's important, exactly how you said, for us to understand as even professionals, as entrepreneurs in any field right now, that taking time is perhaps not synonymous with not doing anything. And that feeling that you're not doing anything can really get to you. I know that it is something that I am currently struggling with, where you do a lot of stuff. Maybe you're working, taking a lot of actions, but those results are not immediate, right? And with that kind of delayed reaction, I think there is a lot of confusion whether or not people are on the right track right now. With relation to that, then, if time and patience are perhaps what we really need as professionals to carry forth, what advice can you give to somebody who is in the middle of something, exactly like you, in the middle of a business where everything has sort of transformed, and now they need to adopt a new reality, and they are struggling with the realities of that?
Well, we are what you call a growth stage business, and so we're not a startup. Uh, with us, what I've learned, I mean, when the first month that stores shut down, and then month two, and now we're in month three. It's been extremely stressful. Yes, we've been relying largely on e-commerce, and we've been one of the pioneers of e-commerce in Pakistan. But still, with lockdowns, deliveries are not being able to be made. There's just been a lot of troubleshooting. What the current wisdom that my network of founders globally, we've been talking about this, is just to really float. Just keep yourself afloat somehow. You need to ride out the storm. So what's going to happen is that the people who will survive, or companies or businesses that will survive post COVID, have really been through the fire, and then will come out stronger. And then there's businesses that won't survive. And on that note, I will let you know that please remember that the percentage of first time founders being successful is around 3%. Don't think that if you have one failed business, or that you're any less strong if you decide to shut down a business. This is something that happens everywhere. It doesn't define you. You just get onto the new thing that you feel is more suitable to the environment.
Mehrbano, I think
Mehrbano,
that's
I
really
think that's really
hard-hitting
hard
advice,
hitting
because
advice, because
it's very
it's very
important for us
important for us
to kind of
to kind
accept
of
the
accept the
reality
reality
that we
that
may
we
not
may not
be able to
be able
continue
to
what we're
continue what
doing.
we're doing. Some businesses have to make that decision,
Yeah.
yeah, and
And
more power to
interest,
them.
more power to them. Absolutely. So, Mehrbano, before we end our session, there is one question I really want to ask you. And that question is something that is very close to my heart as well. What are some of the ways that you practice learning and growth in your life? We know that you love to write, and we know that journaling has been essential. But is there anything else that we can do as individuals to really grow our minds these days?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very annoying on Twitter. I'm constantly reaching out to, people in venture capital or in marketing, or people who inspire me. I'm constantly learning. I'm always taking these courses online where there's founder networks where we share our problems, and also where we learn from each other. You just have to, and in today's world things change so fast, especially again with the current pandemic situation, that pooling resources, brainstorming together, really really being connected to the people in your industry is really key to growth. And you can never ever as a founder assume that you know your industry. There's always something that you don't know, and the more you know, the stronger your company will be.
Mehrbano, thank you so much for that advice. Just wanted to take a second to really thank you for your presence on the show. We have learned so much today, a lot of hard-hitting realities, actually, a lot
A
about
lot
time and
about time
patience
and
and even
patience and even
humbleness.
humbleness.
So
It was
I
my
think that those are the. All right. Well,
All right,
thank
well,
you
thank
so
you so
much.
much.
I'm
You're most
really
welcome.
happy. Yeah. I'm really happy that we got a chance to learn from you. And I'm excited to see where Luscious goes. And I'm really excited to see where we go now with all of this advice in our backpacks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you
Okay,
so
thank you
much.
so much. All right, bye bye.
So, bye. All right, guys, that was a very interesting conversation with Mehrbano Sethi. I think that was one of the most somber conversations we've had, because there were a lot of realities that were discussed. It's not all flowers and roses. There is a lot of routine and a lot of what is seemingly boring that comes up, but with time and patience, and in fact, with what Mehrbano said in the very end, towards the end of her conversation with us, that you cannot assume that you know everything. And that humbleness, that it's perhaps not even humbleness, it's a fact, that there is never enough information that you have, will really strive and drive you to keep going forward and learning. And the fun thing is that our gym task today is directly linked to that. So for your gym task, I would like you to do the following. Reach out to somebody you consider a mentor. If it's not someone who is already your mentor, and it could be somebody you admire, it could be a peer, it could be a supervisor, it could be somebody who's not even in your field, but you've wanted to reach out to them. Reach out to them on a personal level and really share something about your life or about your career that you will be struggling with. It doesn't have to be a fully developed idea, and I think that is the important thing. If you seek out guidance, you perhaps might find answers that you didn't even know you were looking for. That's something that's happened with me, and it's something that we can learn from Mehrbano, that you don't always need to know everything, but you always need to want to learn however much you can. So I'm really hoping to hear your stories about how you connected with your mentors, how you reached out and seeked guidance, especially during these tough times. If you want to reach out to me, please DM me, direct message me on Instagram or Facebook at ActivatePK. You can see it below. I'm looking forward to your stories. If I see something really fun, I'll hit you up and we can even feature it here. So I'm really looking forward to that. I want to thank you for your presence and thank you to Mehrbano Sethi for some of the wonderful learnings we've had today. This is Anam Sethi signing off.